I guess I'll go next, and I have been playing pretty much, like with the exception of the usual palate cleanser of FIFA in the evenings. I have been playing wall to wall Psychonauts 2, my friend. It is part of my game of the year catch up. And like it's the one game where I'm like, I really want to play more of this, and it's one of those games where the more I play of it, the more I want to play of it. Man, that game is so fucking rad. Like,
where are you up to with it?
I think I'm the third last area. I'm Lucretia's Lament.
Okay.
Which according to what I did is I looked up the chapter titles to see how far I was along, and that's the third last area.
I think, is it Fatherland Follies? I think is after...
And then Grilovia.
Right. I wish you'd gone to Fatherland Follies so I could talk to you about that, but
yeah.
Hopefully...
Well, I'm literally right. I was literally right about to leave to go there, I think, when last I played. But fuck me, like, Jesus. Double Fine and Tim Schafer, mad geniuses. Like, I've been a fan of their work, and Psychonauts the original was one where I think I've said it on the show before. Is like I played a little bit of it. It's a charming little game back in the day, but it never hit for me in the way that obviously, I've ranted and raved enough about how much I love Grim Fandango on here, and that was my absolute fucking jam, to the point that when it got re-released on PS4, I went and platinum that shit, which for a point and click adventure is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. But I am just like, I feel like every couple of minutes I am legitimately wowed to the point of vocalizing it on my own in the office at the boundless creativity of this game. Like, every environment is so like full of detail and so well and thoughtfully crafted, and every type of enemy has its little interesting quirk, and every power that Raz has is cool in a different context, and the wit of the game is very funny. All the characters are, to some extent or another, interesting. The game never rests on its laurels of being one particular style of thing. The art style and what they're asking you to do changes up so regularly, so often. I said, because this is in my game of the year list, that like if Psychonauts was an animated TV show when I was growing up, I would have been fucking obsessed with it.
I mean, honestly, like the soundtrack alone at points sounds like a Warner Bros. Saturday morning TV show at points.
It's so good. It's got like it's got a banger of a voice cast in it. There's very little I can poke a hole in about this game. The only thing I would say is that maybe it's a little, I don't know, at the start I wasn't feeling it quite as much. Like the first couple of hours, I was impressed by the things that it was doing technically. I enjoyed the story and the style of the game, but it was kind of at the good but not great level for me personally. And then I kind of go back to it, and as things start to open up more, and as the main kind of like through line of what you're doing in the game reveals itself, it just becomes more and more Moorish, to the point where like I want to see absolutely everything this game has to see right now. And some of the stuff, like when I was like, there was one particular part of the game where there was a couple of fetch quests, and I was like, maybe I'm getting a little tired of this again. And then it goes into a section, I will say nothing except for the fact that it's a section involving you at a music festival trying to get a band back together, where the animation style completely changes.
Yeah. But yet still feels cohesive to that world. It's probably it, and maybe the section after it,
play with impossible space in a way that, like, I not only am I awed by the beauty of the art, but I'm also like, on a technical level, how the fuck does some of this stuff work?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, just a gorgeous game, and like so incredible that, you know, Psychonauts always had its, you know, it's kind of like, it was a cult classic. And the fact that we even got a Psychonauts 2 is kind of amazing. And the fact that it came out and had no fucking right to be this good is also incredible. And I feel a lot like how I was talking about devs earlier. I feel like this game came out, and maybe because it was on Game Pass, and like 100 million things come to Game Pass all the time, maybe because it's a sequel to a cult classic game rather than a big new shiny thing that appeals to everybody. But for whatever reason, I feel like people have slept on this in a wider sense. Like, when I'm seeing now, like, obviously we're getting ready to do our Game of the Year, but the Game of the Year polls and articles are starting to come out now, and this is one of the games that I'm seeing being, like, surprisingly underrepresented. Not that it's not there, but it's not as omnipresent as I necessarily would have expected.
I think I was listening to I want to say it was the Bombcast this week, and Gersma made the point that, like, for a lot of people, Psychonauts 2 is going to be like the second favorite in a lot of categories. You know, they might have their standout favorites, but then Psychonauts 2 is going to be consistently there just below, which means that obviously it's not going to kind of stand out anywhere. And, you know, that can happen, unfortunately, with certain games. But yeah, like, I'm in agreement with you when I spoke about it and now. And for me, like, you spoke there at the start about just this kind of endless ongoing creativity, and every few moments, like, something new kind of pops, and it reminds me of like a Mario game, like a 3D world where you get that new thing every couple of minutes, but as this kind of like big action adventure game instead. And
there's part of me that's not used to getting nice and original things, that in the back of my head is thinking, guys, you're throwing out about 3 games worth of new shit here in one Psychonauts game. It's like, they are just not holding anything back.
Yeah, but it surprised me as well, because I think possibly the slow start is that, for me, I was kind of expecting that it was going to be, okay, here's Raz, he's a Psychonaut now, let's go on some wacky adventures. And the game is just not that. Like, you kind of think that it might be at the start, but then it does this whole 180, and, you know, there's a real kind of like personal story to it, and it's not the story that you think it's going to be, and so there is kind of a bit of a slow burn as it builds up the chapters and builds up the kind of moving parts of what is actually going on till you get to like the end and what it does with that. And it's a very satisfying payoff. They do a really good job with that. And so, like, and it's not essential that you play the first, but there are some parts to it where it does kind of help to have the kind of like, just the knowledge, the understanding of what happened in the original, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely, like, there are I think by and large, the prologue and some of the flavor text and some of the interactions between the characters does a good enough job of filling in most of the gaps. But there are, like you said, a couple of moments in the game where I feel like I'm playing catch up a little bit on the significance of a moment, or that maybe the moment really would have landed harder for me if I'd been with these characters for longer. But, you know, that's like really minor quibbles at the end of the day. Have either of you guys played Psychonauts 2?
I played about the first 2 hours. It ties into what I played when I tried to do my Game of the Year catch-up. And Mark sent me a note being like, well, you know, Game of the Year coming up in a couple of days. I'll murder you if you don't submit your thing on time. His exact words.
Yeah, that sounds like
I was like, there was 2 games I wanted to play. There was Kena Bridge of Spirits and there was Psychonauts. And I got like 2 hours into Kena and then got sidetracked and never got around to Psychonauts, which I did play about 2 hours. I finished up until the end of the casino level. So I'd like a decent like sampling of it, but probably nowhere near what the game entirely has to offer. But I will get back to it.
I feel like the up until the casino kind of feels like the prologue of the game. Like it kind of really feels like things open up actually after the casino, which is kind of crazy because that is like the first 2-3 hours of the game, and there's like a whole bunch that goes on there. But it really feels like not even like the first chapter, but like the prologue of the first chapter in some ways.
It's funny, like, because something I've thought about a lot this week is the boss battles in the game. Because I was in my head comparing it to another incredibly artful and creative game that we've talked about a lot this year that I was playing recently, in The Artful Escape. And a minor criticism I have of that is that if you're looking for challenging boss battles, isn't the game for you, because it's just variations on Simon Says. Whereas for a lot of these boss battles in Psychonauts 2, you couldn't get more disparate in what they're trying to get you to do. For some of them, like, there are your standard kind of like, your blast away a boss, but there's one entire boss sequence where the setup involves you making a series of recipes. That's all I will say. And I'm just like, I'm going through this, and it's tremendously entertaining, and all the characters are really well designed. There's like adorable little food ingredients and stuff like this. And I'm just going through this actually going, what the fuck is going on here? Like, this, what?
Yeah,
like,
because it's not even so much a boss fight to begin with. It is, as you said, it's kind of like a boss sequence.
It's kind of like you don't realize it's the boss until the second sequence. It's like, oh, right, okay.